Welcome to Scrolling to Death. On today's episode of Teachers Talk, I'm joined by a super interesting guest, educator, author. His name is Matt Brady. He's been long working to try to get his school to go phone free and has run into some pretty extreme barriers. So that's what we get into on today's episode. Before I jump into my conversation with Matt, I wanted to mention today's sponsor, Bark Technologies. I am so grateful that these days we parents have a safer device option for our kids. The Bark phone was built for families who are looking to ramp up their child's online safety. It has parental controls built in and allows us to manage screen time and their entire digital experience super easily. Now let's jump into my conversation with Matt Brady. Okay, so Matt, welcome to the episode. Welcome to the conversation. You have quite the background. Thank you for sharing all that with me. You have 15 years as an educator. You co-founded an organization called the scienceof.org dedicated to STEM outreach and communication. You're a prolific writer. You have a Substack called Teacher Teacher. You're very busy. So I'm happy to have you here and get some of your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what is a project you're working on right now that you're most excited about? Maybe the Substack?
It would be my Substack, even though it's kind of like the first 4 installments, which I'm putting out daily just to build a bit of momentum. It's recovering from this past year plus of trying to get my school or trying to get my district to listen to needing to go phone free. My mind is still awash in all of those memories because I took notes. I took notes during every meeting and everything like that. And I had to kind of relive it all to go through it. And it was just angry and frustrating for a lot of it. That's what I'm excited about. Something that makes me angry and frustrated.
I mean, but you're going to reach a lot of people because not only are there many teachers that are wanting to go phone free, there's a lot of parents. I know their pushback is often from parents, but there are also parents on the other side who believe in this and also try to go to their school and the district and hit roadblocks. So we'll dig into that. But what subject do you teach? What grade or grades?
I teach high school chemistry and physics. So I'm kind of 10th through 12th grade.
Okay. And what has the journey looked like from when you started till now regarding devices at school?
As I said, actually in the first part of my Substack, I came on in 2008. And so that's before the kind of that big, I guess, fixed event in our timeline of 2010, 2012 in there that that phones came on. And I honestly, it was just a fad. These were little things. They like walkie-talkies. I was kind of dumb and naive. And so I've seen them come from curiosities to, oh, these will be education partners. And just imagine that students will be able to look up everything. And then to the, hey, wait a minute, something's going on here. To the, after the pandemic, these kids are addicted. They're flat out addicted. And we can argue over the actual meaning of addicted and the actual AMA of addicted and DSM. They're addicted. Now it's just, it's weird and creepy. And I think a really, really bad thing that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed.
What are the negative consequences you're seeing of your students' dependence on the devices?
With their phones, they have no attention span, except for whatever they're doing on their phone. Critical thinking is gone out the window. That's both phones and just digital devices in the classroom of why do I need to think about it? Because I can just look it right up and find the answer there. Socially, they're strange little beasts. They don't talk. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to communicate. On the upside, I was one of those teachers for a while that before phones, 10 minutes of downtime of nothing to do in a classroom was like a lit fuse. And you were just trying to avoid that at all costs. Now, I tell my students this. I don't do it, but I tell my students this. Any teacher that says, okay, we're good. Last 5 minutes of class, you can have your phones. The teacher just wants a break because they know that it's just like giving a pacifier to a baby. And that's sad. I think we're setting our kids up for addiction with these things because they're addicted to the phone physically. They're addicted to social media and all the different programs. I think that's just really, really bad. That's wearing some grooves in their brains for addiction that I think time will tell that anything can just wander in there and start riding on those neurons to feed that addiction. Right now in our schools, we have problems with vaping. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an addictive substance, literally, flat out. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of wondering, is this nicotine piggybacking on phones? Is this phones piggybacking on nicotine?
Mm-hmm.
And all the other things that in their adult lives that they might run into that we've trained them how to be addicted.
Yeah, and I've wondered that too. I asked a doctor recently. He's a pediatrician and a researcher, and he's done studies on the brain and technology in young people and how it diminishes the white matter of the brain. And so that interview is with Dr. John Hutton, and will be live by the time this comes out, because so listeners can hear that. But so I asked him specifically. So we're training kids through their use of technology to have these addictive tendencies. How does that transfer over to other substances, right? It makes sense that they would then be more easily addicted to other things. And you're kind of seeing that happen in real time.
Right.
And he said
Right.
there's just not quite enough research to point to that. But there was a new article that came out related to that. I'll send it to you afterward. And
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head enough to quote it, but yeah, it's looking like that a bit, which is not great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
So
I worry about, I mean, we're one of the states that, I don't know if y'all had it out there, but we were just buried under commercials for online sports betting in
mm,
February, because it became legal in North Carolina in March.
oh
And I'm
wow.
like, on your phones, you can bet. And I've had kids, 10th graders, tell me how easy it is to get around that, or their parents think it's funny that they can make money using their accounts. And so
Mm,
wow, we've got nicotine, we've got gambling, we've got
mm-hmm,
phones. A lot of people are saying now, I don't think we need to wait for all the research to come in and all
mm,
the data to come in. I think, unfortunately, I think the teachers know what's going on, but we have the smallest seat at the table if we're even at the table.
yeah, interesting. What has been the state of device management in your school and in your district in the last couple of years?
It has, I think we fall under one of those districts of, that gets quoted of 70 or 80% of the school districts in the United States have phone bans. But when you drill into that, you see it's, room by room, school by school, administrator by administrator,
Mm-hmm,
no teeth on these things. As I say, we saw in the pandemic that our schools kind of siloed themselves, and we would have different high schools that were following kind of different rules
mm-hmm,
on pieces of it. And it was a survival mechanism of just get through this thing the best way that the principals and admin could see. And we kind of took that, I think, into our classrooms, and our classrooms are siloed. And
mm-hmm,
so my rules about phones, I collect them at the beginning of every period. I
mm-hmm,
was voluntary, and later in the semester turned it into, here's the list with the numbers on it, put your phone in this slot.
mm-hmm.
And that's an expectation in my room from the very start.
Yeah.
There are other rooms that, no, your phone just has to be away,
Mm-hmm,
or others where just the teacher doesn't want to fight that day.
mm-hmm,
And so there's no policy, there's no teeth in it. As I kind of mentioned, as I was going through all this stuff and remembering kind of my journey on this, I kind of came to the conclusion that, and it's not the fault of any individual necessarily.
mm-hmm,
It's this, kind of distributed leadership, distributed responsibility. So nobody has to take the blame for anything.
mm-hmm,
But I just think nobody wants the fight. Nobody
mm,
really, on the school side of things, nobody wants the fight. To have that screaming parent on the phone, or heaven forbid, in the office screaming about this $1,000 piece of technology that the teacher took, or the is locked up in the safe in the office. Nobody wants those fights, which is
okay.
where we
So
are.
the fight and the pushback is the parents.
Yeah. And I don't know how much it is in my community. I know actually it was the 13th, June 13th, just a few days ago,
Mm-hmm,
that one of our local news stations put a story up from Seattle about how school is going phone free. A middle school out there is going phone free.
mm-hmm,
And in the picture, they had yonder bags, and I guess they mentioned them in there.
mm-hmm,
And because local news these days posts things on Facebook, because that's how you spread news, I guess.
mm-hmm.
And just see what the feedback is. Like, the first post was absolutely not. I could read it right here.
Yeah.
If something's going on at the school and if there's an emergency, I want to know. And it wasn't even 50-50. There were more parents that were saying no, they need to be out, or I'm a former teacher. But the ones who were, if there's an emergency, no, my child needs their phone. And that's That's the
Okay.
fight. That's the fight that
Okay.
nobody wants to deal with.
And I think that's the most passionate pushback
Yep.
is emergency, and they're referencing school shootings
Right.
mostly.
Right.
So, do you feel that the child having a phone with them in a school shooting makes them safer?
No. I mean, but there will be discussions. I don't want to say fights because I've kind of been moving into the space of how to change people's minds, and it's not arguing, it's not beating them over the head with data. There will be
Mhm.
discussions about that. I had a parent say, well, my student was being bullied and the office wasn't doing anything about it. So,
Mm.
they called me and I was able to come in there.
Mhm.
There will be those cases. But as I'm sure that Yonder especially will put the school safety folks up there and they'll say, in the case of an emergency, we really don't want the cell towers gummed up with 1,000 different calls going out or texts going out
Mhm.
and 1,000 different versions of the story going out.
Right.
So I'm a parent myself, and when my son was at school, there were lockdowns, and there are lockdowns at my school now and then, and it's mildly irritating to terrifying when we don't know what's going on.
Mhm.
And that's going to have to be something that is addressed with compassion and empathy to come to an understanding, not just
Mhm.
I understand that you think it might be the last time you can talk to your child, but that doesn't matter. We can't do that. We have
No.
to hear these things out and understand where they're coming from.
Yes. And all parents and probably even non-parents can understand that
Yeah,
feeling and that emotion. But in my opinion, if my kid is having to be locked down, and I don't know the exact safety protocol, but I assume lights off under your desk.
for me, yeah, it's lights off in a place that can't be seen from the windows. I have a chemical storage closet area that we can go into. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And so if a shooter does make it into the room and then my kid has a phone and it's lighting up or dinging or they're talking on it
sure.
out
Yep,
loud, that puts my child in more danger.
yep,
So
yep.
that's for me the line. Like that's where I'm like, okay, that argument for me doesn't hold any weight. Now, let's balance it out with I do obviously want to know if my child is okay. I want to reassure them, talk to them. So I get it, but let's have a realistic discussion about it and bring
Right,
more
right,
awareness to phones don't keep them safe and in some manner makes them more unsafe.
right, right.
So that argument is interesting. What other arguments or pushback do you receive from parents? You mentioned the like I want to know when they're being bullied and the school isn't
Yeah.
addressing
Well,
it.
that's kind of the funny thing. I've never gotten to the parents yet.
Oh.
I haven't, I've just been trying, I've been moving through my district, my school and my district. And
Mhm.
this is going on a year or more than a year. And I
Mm.
haven't even reached the parents. I mean, I know I kind of have all these, I thought by now we'd be talking to the parents and having focus groups with parents.
Uh-huh.
Um, we haven't even gotten there. Um, it's just been pushback is too strong.
Mhm.
Again, I think it's the distributed leadership, distributed responsibility that organizations have. That
Mhm.
no one person is at fault, but yet there's no really one person that says yes or no and
Mm.
has the buck stops here sitting on their desk.
Who would
And
that be
so
though if there had to be is it principal or
it's well, my trip with it was I thought I had proposed that we investigate and try to work with Yonder to
Mhm.
get
Yeah.
couches.
Yeah.
Yonder, as I'm sure you've talked to other teachers and have heard, there's a price.
Mhm.
It's not cheap. And so I had done all the research on Yonder and I had gone to Wake Forest University School of Education. They're interested. I've gone to one of our local hospitals. They're interested from the
Mhm.
mental health and community health. Lots of different angles on this. So I
Mhm.
was kind of back and making my case. And I got the okay to talk about it at our beginning of the year lead team meeting. And
Mhm.
my principal said, and I love my principal, but he said, I don't want to go at this alone.
Mhm.
I need another school to go with me.
Okay.
Okay, understandable, at double the price. So here
Mm.
I was looking at this much money to scrape together might be
Mhm.
possible. And, with one sentence in 30 seconds, I was now, okay, we got to look at twice of that amount. So I had already
Mm.
talked with friends and kind of, we had that in mind that could be a thing.
Mhm.
So that wasn't a game stopper.
Mhm.
But then I continued moving through the system. I finally got a chance to talk to the superintendent. She loved the idea. and was all for it. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, this is good. If the superintendent's all for it, then
Mm-hmm.
it's as good as law. It was not. It was
Mm-hmm.
there were more meetings that came after that
Mm-hmm.
that just, well, how is this going to work again? And I had to explain it 2 or 3 times to the same people in a meeting of how this
Mm-hmm.
could work. My favorite thing was that it was explained to me of how they asked, well, they'd be able to have them out at lunch, right? I said, no, that's the point. With
Mm-mm.
a yonder pouch specifically,
Mm-hmm.
they have them locked up, so they'd have to develop those social skills again that they've
Mm-hmm.
kind of put on the back shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And the person said, well, that kind of makes it sound like a prison.
Uh, the
My
parents
school
can get a
has
hold of their children at any time.
Good point.
Yeah.
And my school has cameras at every public place. We have an SRO. We have computerized hall pass system called Smart Pass. We have metal
Mm-hmm.
detectors. We have almost uniforms.
Mm.
But yeah, not having your phone at lunch makes it feel like a prison. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's the one thing. And so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of at that point realized this is again nobody was overtly just angry, no hard stop, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody had their own thing, their
Mm-hmm.
own reason for being unsure, and cumulatively those things just built up and built up and built up to the point
Mm-hmm.
that I kind of just threw my hands in the air
Mm-hmm.
and I said that the last chance I had was to just go straight to the school board. My
Mm-hmm.
wife talked me down from doing an angry fist pounding on the podium at
Mm-hmm.
public
Yeah.
comment,
Yeah.
and I was able to meet with the chair and co-chair of our school board. And
Mm-hmm.
again, they were all excited about it. They loved the idea. We kind of, talked about what if we could expand this out even and
Mm-hmm.
where we could find money. And then it just kind of dried up. And
Mm.
the end result is the board has revised the policy on cell phones in schools,
Mm-hmm.
and it's basically like everybody else's of they can use
Mm-hmm.
them during class change and at lunch, and they can't be out during class, which is there's really not much daylight between that and what it was.
Right.
And it's kind of
Mm-mm.
we're stuck in Einstein's quote in real life of just we can't use the same thinking that got us into this to get us out of
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, and that's kind of like what I've realized in all this. And I love John Haidt to death, and I
Mm-hmm.
love Scott Galloway because they're at the same school and they kind of picked up each other's
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And he does the same thing. And his talks of just all the talks of we got to have phone-free schools,
Mm-hmm.
and depending where they are, you have the applause and all that stuff. Like it's some easy thing.
No, it's
It's
not.
not an easy thing.
Mm-mm.
It's everybody has their own 2 cents they want to put in on it,
Mm-hmm.
and as a result, 2 cents after a while adds up to a lot, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm finding.
It's complicated. It's a complicated discussion with a lot of people involved.
Yep.
And, but there's a lot of people trying to make it happen, but very confused about where to start and,
Right.
but convinced of the benefits. Let's talk about what specifically do you feel like the benefits will be to the children of having their phones locked up all day?
The benefits will be, I look at it from the point of view, I kind of leave the social media and the harm from social media to the side. I
Sure.
don't I don't want critics coming at that and saying, oh, this is just this is a moral panic type of thing, and we can
Mm-hmm.
dismiss it because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I go from kind of what Matt and Joe talk about in Screen Schooled of just
Mm-hmm.
the cognitive function, the distraction, the study that shows just having your phone on the desk
Mm-hmm.
cognitively, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? The brain drain study. Just those types of things. I'd like to have my kids cognitively back up to where they were before the pandemic. I know pandemic played a role, but phones are carrying that role right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see them being social again. I'd like to see them being kids. That would be a really cool thing to see
Yeah.
them being kids again that that I remember from before or in the early days of phones.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take non-phone trouble any day over phone-based trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know the amount of, with this use of social media too, during the school day, the amount of cyberbullying and
Right.
drug sales. Like, what's the drug situation like? That's stemmed from being able to coordinate through the smartphones.
I don't know exactly. I
Yeah.
know that before at my school, before we instituted Smart Pass is the hall monitor system or
Mm.
the hall pass system,
Mm-hmm.
and we knew of groups of kids that would go out weirdly at the same time,
Yeah, right.
every day or every
Yep.
other day. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying if they were doing or what they were doing,
Mhm.
but they were coordinating with their phones.
Yeah.
And so I'm the faculty meeting that in the meetings now is just
Mhm.
sitting in the back when you hear, oh well, we have students that are vaping and getting together and vaping in the restrooms.
Mhm.
I'm the guy in the back just going, phones, it's the phone, take the phones away.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
there's a great story about in the commentary track of Armageddon, the
Mm.
Ben Affleck
Yeah.
Bruce Willis
Yeah, I
movie,
love it. Yeah.
where Ben Affleck says, wait, we're training drillers to be astronauts. Wouldn't it be easier to train astronauts to be drillers?
Right.
And Michael Bay just said, "Shut up, Ben." And I've become Ben Affleck at these
Mhm.
meetings where I'm just like, just take the phones away. We won't have a
Yeah.
problem. Just take them away during the day, and we won't have a problem with.
Mhm.
Shut up, Brady. Okay.
Yeah, well, where they're buying the vapes underage is also social media.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's
Finding their adults that will buy them for them, and yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. And then what about test scores? Have you seen an overall decline in just the level of
Yeah,
their ability to
yeah.
learn?
Test scores are a much larger issue
Mhm.
nationwide,
Mhm.
worldwide with ACT scores. I think they're the lowest they've been in 30 years.
Mhm.
Um, I know ours have been on the decline. That's a tougher line to draw
Yeah, we'll talk about
to
school
phones.
issued devices too, because I feel like it's also plays into
Yeah,
it. But
yep. But it can be drawn. I mean, because if you go with phones, and this is
mm,
outside of the school, but
mhm.
you go with phones, it's just like they're on them all night, and they're not getting the
Mhm.
sleep, and they're
Yeah.
not getting. So there's all kinds of issues that you could put for test scores. I spoke with a principal in all my research for Yonder. I spoke with a principal at a school in Alabama that uses
Mhm.
pouches, and
Mhm.
his ACT scores went up from year to year. The first year they started
Mm.
using them, they went up
Mhm.
not by a little.
Mhm.
They made a nice jump, and
Mhm.
that's the kind of thing I'd like to see if we can't get back to that. That's what I proposed with this whole plan, that we'd have data that we could collect and publish in a journal and say, look at this.
Mhm.
And Yonder was
Mhm.
all for it. And it just kind of
Those
everything
articles
got,
do really well when schools report that they took
yep,
phones away and then everything improved. And then you mentioned Matt Miles and Joe Clement. So their book is called Screen Schooled. We both highly recommend it. I have
yeah.
an interview with them and probably another one coming. And I think the subtitle of their book is like Tech Overuse. You have it there, don't you?
Made
Tech
the,
Overuse makes
it's, yeah,
students
somewhere here,
dumber.
making our students dumber. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, harsh but true.
Yeah.
So, what would you like to communicate to parents generally about phone use in schools?
One, it's not their fault. And this
Mhm,
is something that I think has to be dealt with again, compassion and empathy.
mhm,
We can't draw lines. We're on the same side.
mhm,
It's not the kids' fault. The kids didn't have a chance. This
mhm,
was, the most powerful marketing machine in history since big tobacco,
mhm,
aimed squarely at them. Kids didn't
mhm,
have a chance, and parents didn't know. We didn't. I mean, my son had a phone, and this
right.
was 2000 and 12, 13 in there. He had a phone.
Mhm,
We didn't know. And as John Haidt talks about the collective action and the collective mindset, almost everybody else
mhm,
has one. No parents going out there going, well, let me do a deep dive into research and see what this actually says.
mm,
At this point, though, listen to teachers, I guess,
mhm,
would be my thing. I kind of have these Walter Mitty type fantasies in my head of just like, I want to go to a parent teacher meeting where, they tell me, oh, they're so distracted and they need extra time. And I would just say, does the student have a phone?
mhm,
And they would say, well, yes. And I would say, what kind of guidelines do you put on the phone? Well, nothing. And I would just get up and walk away and say, oh, I can't
mhm,
do anything if you're not. That's not the right approach. It's
mhm.
that kind of, ooh, gives me
Yeah,
goosebumps to think about it, but it's not the right
yeah.
approach. We're on the same side. We want what's best for the kids. And this is a way, at least experiment with it. Get it
Mhm,
away from them for a week, get it away from them for a day, and
mhm.
see, there will be the addiction problems. There will be the anger and the fights about it, but just try it.
Yeah, and that'll wean off. Like
Yeah.
I've talked to a doctor about that recently. It takes some time to wean them off of the addiction that they have to a device if you're giving it to them every day. But they'll be okay. Like
Yeah.
they will
They're tough.
recover. And I think one important thing is I was having a conversation with a friend recently who has a 7-year-old, and she said most of his friends have smart watches
Hmm.
already. And so I think there's a tendency still to over connect our child, like give our children technology to connect them to their friends and to you when they're 6, 7 years old. And that's
Yeah.
starting that need to be connected and that reliance on devices so young, like they're little children. And so we just have to be really careful and think about that in our decisions around devices from young ages. And I have lots of conversations parents can reference about that.
Yeah. And that's the paradox I think that we run into with
Mm-hmm.
I can have talks, I can talk to any of my friends with younger kids, teenagers, and we can talk about our childhoods. Even I'm a little bit older than a lot of my friends, but we'll talk, just, oh, remember before phones, and we'd go out and do all this stuff, and wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that fun? And just, oh, I had such a great childhood and a great school experience in elementary and middle and high school.
Mm-hmm.
um, and they'll agree that it was a great experience. But
Mm-hmm.
then at the same time, they'll make sure their kid has a phone and make sure they know where they are at all times and make sure they
Mm-hmm.
know. In elementary school, you could take apart the clicky pens and
Mm-hmm.
turn the pieces around, and so you had a little thing that shot out of them. I
Mm-hmm.
once messed up in fifth grade, messed up the spring because you can stretch a spring and make it
Mm-hmm.
shoot farther.
Yeah.
Messed it up, and the spring dug right into my thumb,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point that I could see it was trying to pop out
Oh my
through the
God.
skin. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom was a school teacher, and she
Uh-huh.
was 30 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, well, I went to the office. They called her, and she said, does he need to go to the hospital?
Mm-hmm.
No. Well, I'll be there when I can get there. It's going to take me a
Yeah.
little while. It wasn't, I call my mom and show her the picture and all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have a very small scar, but I'm okay. I
But
made it.
this coping skills that we learn from instances like that, whether it's that or you're getting bullied a little or anything,
Yeah.
having to sit with that uncomfortable feeling as a child and not
Yep.
have someone to just rely on or even a phone to just look at and scroll through to distract yourself from dealing with the issue. It's not good for the kids, and we're prioritizing our comfort and in trying to helicopter parent them and know where they are all the time and get a hold of them all the time over their own skills and their brain development and their social skills and all these things. So I think more parents are coming around to that and understanding that, but it can be a strong draw to know where they are when, you're sending them down the street to go ride their bike and they're kind of far away, you can't see them. Oh, well, that would be nice to be able to just have them check in with you if they fall down or something,
Yep.
right?
Imagine how the movie Stand By Me would have been with cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
We're
I
going to go
know.
hiking out to see a dead body. Oh,
Yeah.
mom, where are we? Yeah, it just, it wouldn't have had the impact, and the kids
All
wouldn't have.
those 80s and 90s
Yeah,
adventure movies where
Goonies,
kids went out on
Goonies.
their butt. Yeah.
Where
Like
are
imagine.
you? We're
Right.
stuck in the Fratellis.
I know.
What
I'm in the
are you
cooler and I
doing
can't
there?
get out.
I'm calling the police. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Oh my God. It wouldn't have been a
no
movie.
pirate treasure.
Yeah, I know.
The kids are aware of it. That's kind of another weird thing. They're aware of it. I had a
Mm-hmm.
small group of kids that would stay after on
Mm-hmm.
a weekly, and the first thing we did was check our screen time. We'd show it to each other. We
Mm-hmm.
held each other accountable because we were trying to reduce our screen time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you can hear or read how, hate will talk about, 40 hours a week, and just you can hear that and just go, that's insane. And then you
Yeah.
look at a teenager's screen and go, oh, 40 hours a week. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they're aware of it, and they know it's not, they kind of laugh it off, but
Mm-hmm.
it needs to move past that but anytime you have a talk with kids about phones, you get it's not me, I don't have a problem, everybody else might have a problem, but which is the same refrain as an alcoholic almost.
Mm.
And
Well,
that's
and the
where
same parents saying a
addiction.
lot of not my kid. Like that's
Yep.
not going to, because I do highlight a lot of the harms and a lot of the kids who have actually passed away from buying
Yeah.
a fake pill on Snapchat or
Yep.
getting cyberbullied so bad that they die by suicide, also getting served suicide content on TikTok,
Yep.
that kind of thing. And most parents shun that and say that's like
Not my kid.
fear
My
mongering. That
kid's
could
too smart.
never happen to my kid.
Yeah.
But it is our kids. It's every kid. It's in it. We have to take it more seriously.
Right.
We can't let it roll off our back like that.
Right.
Anything else you want to share about smartphones? And we'll have a short discussion about school issued devices.
I think if kind of the big picture that I go to, if you are a teacher that wants to get rolling and trying to make your school or your district go phone free,
Mm-hmm.
don't go it alone. Don't do what I
Mm.
did. Get
Mm.
parents from the very start. Get
Yeah.
parents involved. I kind of am a little bit harsh as how I recall it and write about it, but you're just a teacher. You're not a parent. Get
Mhm.
parents involved,
Mhm.
and they have to listen to parents. And that'll be tough, but expect resistance from every corner.
Mhm.
Once you get to parents, I don't think they're going to be nice, but again, I don't know. But come at them with compassion and empathy. We're all on the same
Mhm.
side here. We want what's
Yeah.
best for the kids, and whether they're
Mhm.
ours specifically or the ones that we get during the day.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I think we'll be surprised at the number of parents, maybe small but
Yep.
mighty number of parents
Yep.
who are also passionate about this. So,
There
and
there is, and I know we want to talk about the other, but there is one last thing.
yeah.
It's a half joke that I go on. I tell people, don't underestimate the power of smug.
Mhm.
In that, everybody knows, or everybody is soon to know, well, tech executives, their kids go to these low tech, no tech schools like Waldorf.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, well, I could be a tech executive. I could be a billionaire if I just wasn't financially embarrassed right now. So certainly I want my kids to go there. And
Mhm.
just that kind of play for social status thing of, I want my kid to go to a school where they have low tech or no tech because it gets the best out of them, and I can hope, but
Mhm.
I'd love to see that turn into kind of like this self-fulfilling, churning thing that all parents want these schools to be low tech or no tech because that's what's best for
Mhm.
kids. I can
Yep.
hope.
Yeah, me too. And I have an interview with a Waldorf educator, Brooke Natsky, recently that I
Mhm.
recently released. That's really interesting, learning about that whole approach. But we did talk specifically because I was fascinated by the fact that tech executives often send their children to low tech schools
It's
and
like
don't
they
give
know
their kids
something.
their own product.
Yeah.
I know it's like a
Yep.
big dupe on everybody and
Yep.
it sucks. But all we can do is spread awareness and get people to understand the problems with it. Pausing here to tell you guys a little more about the best phone for kids. It's called the Bark phone. If you don't want your kids signing up for social media, an iPhone is not gonna do it. The Bark Phone starter plan comes with talk and text only. If and when you are ready to start integrating some social media access or other apps, there are advanced plans available that offer social media, but not without your approval. Plus, it has advanced content monitoring, which will send you alerts of potential dangers on your child's phone. So, when it comes to a basic phone that won't addict or distract your child from school and healthier activities, the Bark phone is where it's at. If your child already has an iPhone or Android and you don't want to switch it up, please layer on Bark parental controls as a baseline. You can set screen time rules, block certain websites and apps, get alerts, and there are tons more helpful options for parents. Back to my conversation with Matt Brady. Okay, I just want to know, we don't have to go too in depth into this, but I'm assuming students at your school have individual, like one-to-one devices?
We have
Part.
Chromebooks, and they can bring their own devices. They can bring their own laptops,
Mm.
which is problematic on one front because the district has NetRef, which
Mhm.
allows us, Big Brother style, teachers to look at all the devices.
On your screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
On so I in my room there on my wireless spot. So you're looking at all the devices that are connecting through that wireless node.
Mhm.
Um, that's not all the devices. And if you're
Mhm.
going to punish or discipline students because of what you're seeing on NetRef, all your students have computers out, but 8, 10 of them are hotspotting.
They're hotspotting, you can't see
Right.
what they
I
have.
can't see it.
Right,
I can
right,
only
right,
see
right.
what's on the system's Wi-Fi. And
And so to
so,
be clear, they're using their phones to hotspot to their phones so
right,
they don't have to be on the school's Wi-Fi and be monitored. So you
yep,
really truly have no idea what they're doing unless
right.
you were to walk around the whole
Yeah.
time.
That was one of the things that the principal in Alabama had said he loved, was that with phones in the pouches, turned off and in pouches for the day,
Yep.
then with watches and everything else, and then there's no hotspotting. And so no
Yep.
one's watching Netflix when they should be
Mhm.
doing work.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, that's one problem with it. The other is, I don't have a big problem where like Chromebooks are just malfunctioning or things like that, but
Mhm.
I know the kids know so much more than we do about it.
Mhm.
And you just start picking at that and you can find out, yeah, they know how to jailbreak these computers so they can do whatever they want with them,
Mm.
and put them back on before they get noticed, brought back into the school on the system Wi-Fi. I don't know. They're
Okay.
learning. I don't know what they're learning what we want them to be learning about this stuff.
Okay, so the school issued devices being used in the classroom, how much time do you feel like on average they're within a class period? On average, how much time are they doing what they're supposed to be doing for the lesson versus doing something else?
I can really only answer for mine. I'm
Yeah.
a voluntary Luddite, and
Mm-hmm.
so I will have weeks go by where computers don't come out at all.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, great. Yep.
just because we are paper pencil, chemistry and physics is math based. I want
Mm-hmm.
them doing it by hand. I want them writing an exemplar problem in their notebook where they can annotate it. I make a point not to, I do a lot with slides, and I don't publish my slides until the end of the last period in the day. So
Mm-hmm.
I know they're not looking at my slides. So
Okay.
yeah, I really, again, it was Matt and Joe on Screen School that really made me think about that and go, I don't want these screens up unless
Mm-hmm.
they have to be. Unfortunately, I'll use them for tests just because that's instantly graded on Canvas and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I really keep them off of it. If they're on it, it's for a good reason. It's not
Okay.
for just on the day.
Okay. But if they do need to be on it, you would assume that it's a struggle for them to stay focused on what they're
Yes.
supposed to be focused on.
Yeah. It's almost to the point that it's not worth the fight. You just kind of walk by and just go, "Hey, get back on there. Come on. Don't be doing this. It's not
Okay.
worth, screaming, yelling, threatening a write up or something like that."
Okay. What if the school issued devices only accessed what you needed for the lesson?
That would be pretty terrific, but I don't know how that would
Mm-hmm.
work tech
Mm-hmm.
wise. If, the teachers have to put in each day what it is, and I don't want to cut them off. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
best stuff in classes happens when a student finds a new way to solve a problem or a
Mm-hmm.
different way
Yeah.
around or has an idea that there might be something that connects to what we're looking at that I didn't think of.
Mm-hmm.
But to say they can't get to it because that day's blocks are in place, it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Again, it's, as we said, it's complicated. It's very
Mm-hmm.
complicated on how to get through this and how to get around this.
Yeah. Very complicated because, like my kindergartners, for example, have access to YouTube in their classroom, but because some of the older grades apparently need access to YouTube, they have it on all the devices and it can be difficult, I'm hearing, for the school to like separate what the access looks like by grade
Yeah.
level.
We have on ours, YouTube is, we have to, staff has to approve a
Mm-hmm.
video. And I'll admit some of the weirder videos are for stuff that I do in my classes. We use
Mm.
James Bond film clips for physics. I use all kinds of kind of crazy stuff here and there just for
Mm-hmm.
engagement and different types of problems. I don't go back and turn it off because they
Mm-hmm.
still might need to look at that or something like that. So
Sure, sure.
there are some kinds of things, and sometimes I will be searching on the school system and find a video on YouTube and it says, approved for the district. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who in the world would approve this? That it's
Mm-hmm.
already somehow approved. So
Yeah.
there are, again, complicated. There are ways to go work with that. I don't know how you can control it all.
Yeah, that's such a tricky one. And I hear stories of kids in middle school who are who end up chatting on Discord on their school issued device or Facebook with strangers who are grooming them. Like crazy
Yeah.
things can happen when you give your kids access to a device where you can speak with people, strangers and
Mhm.
adults. So that for me is a hard line. No, we need to make sure kids can't access strangers on those
Yep.
devices.
We need to understand where kids are coming from, and a lot of us in education need to remember being kids.
Mm-hmm.
We've not been kids for so long that it's kind of hard for us to remember. One of my hot takes in all of this is the kids are behaving exactly as they should given the
Mm-hmm.
world that we've given them, given
Right.
the devices that we've given them, given the access that we've given them. How
Mm-hmm.
did we expect them to react? And,
Mm-hmm.
more importantly, how would we have done that? I think we can kind of put that line in there and say, with this mindset of, well, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have gone to a porn site in third period. Yeah, you would have. You would
Yeah,
have.
for
You would have
sure.
been chatting with, somebody out of the blue talks to you. You would be talking.
Mm-hmm.
Teenagers are social animals. They want to talk. They want to feel important. Again, one of my, shut up Ben moments in a meeting was I stopped somebody when they were saying, the kids did this. I'm like, wait, the kids just were kids. They
Mm-hmm.
acted exactly like kids. Why didn't we plan for this? Why couldn't we have seen this coming? Who would expect kids would act like kids?
Yeah, we're doing them a disservice with the over. use of the technology.
Yep.
And just to wrap up school issue devices, do you generally feel like they're being relied on too heavily in schools, or are they being used effectively?
It's not like an overwhelming, oh, one or the other. I think it's more, a little bit more they're being relied on too
Mm-hmm.
heavily. I
Mm-hmm.
hate that my class that I mentioned, I really want to get textbooks, new textbooks, since the ones that are available are 20-ish years old or
Oh my God.
18, 17 years old. I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
much changes in chemistry, but I would like
Mm-hmm.
some new things. And it's just, I might have well have grown a second head,
Oh gosh.
because there is OpenStax, which is a really terrific online textbook. It's done by
Mm-hmm.
Rice University. And it's free, and you can download it, PDF. You can. It's amazing. It's really, really
Mm-hmm.
high quality.
Mm-hmm.
I just really don't want my kids' eyes on screens. Our district top down, every year we go back early this year, so we'll hear about it in early August of, well, here's this gadget, here's this app that we're paying for that you should be happy we're paying for, and you better use it. Like, there's no question in school of how to make school work better. No question has an answer of more screens.
Right.
Put them in front of screens more. And
Right.
if anybody says that, they're trying to sell you an app, or they're
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's trying to diminish teachers, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't have to talk about Sal Khan right now, but
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, before we decide to add more tech, we need to ask, is it better for the kids? And
Right,
kids don't learn better from screens. They learn better from paper text.
right.
There's research to support that.
Yep,
So every time we're rolling out more technology, more screen-based textbooks, we're doing them a disservice.
yep. And there was a study
So,
recently that said that, on showing the great effectiveness of all these platforms and apps and sites,
mhm.
it's only based on 5% of the users, because
Wow.
95% of the users aren't really engaging it in the way that the company is saying students
Mm-hmm.
will engage it. And that's a problem that gets swept under the rug. I don't know how you bring that up to a district, say we're wasting money because look at this. And
Yeah.
but then you're trying to bring, it's always a problem when you bring data to a belief fight. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to lose, because if the
Mm-hmm.
district believes that these things are working,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? They're working, no matter what
Yeah.
your data says.
Scary.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what does your perfect world look like when it comes to your students and technology?
Unfortunately, I think my perfect world looks like kids not being kids, kids having an inordinate amount of self control.
Mm,
But in the meantime, I just take that their phones are not being used, but they're present in the moment. That we
mhm,
use tech when we need the tech. They talk to each other and they chat with each other in the halls and lunch. And I'm reminded maybe a little bit of when I was in high school.
mhm,
But tech shouldn't be seen as this equal to a teacher partner in
mhm,
education. And it
mhm,
shouldn't be seen as the be all end all. It's a tool, but like the meme says, we're teachers are in that never ending path of, oh, well, is it the VCR with the TV? Is that the big break in education we've been waiting for? Is it the DVD? Is it
mhm,
the on and on and on? Is it the calculator?
mhm,
If we can just get our kids, thinking and working this stuff through in their brains and not be distracted again,
mhm,
I wouldn't mind that much if they just go back to writing notes and passing notes in class. But
mhm.
yeah,
I still have some of my little high school, middle school notes. They're so sweet.
I started looking at those a long time ago and went, nope, nope, nope.
Tossed them.
There was a campfire for that night.
Yeah, they're pretty embarrassing. Okay. Anything else you want to share on this topic, Matt, before we close out?
Like I said, if you're going to go for this, it's a worthy task, but
Hmm.
it's not going to be as quick as blithely mentioning it in front of a TED audience.
Hmm.
um, get someone to go with you. Get
Hmm.
parents, and you're going to exhaust yourself, and you're going to make yourself crazy angry, at all the resistance, little bits and pieces that you'll find. So get a group of teachers, get a friend, and then get parents. It can be done. I've yet to figure out the exact pathway on it, but it can
Hmm.
be done.
You're forging it, I think, and we thank you for that. And my whole goal here is to get parents and teachers on the same page, because this is a fight that we need to be together on and in support of our kids. And it's the right thing to do, especially when it comes to the phone free schools and the research behind that. So I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. I will include a link to your Substack so that parents and
Cool.
listeners can follow along. But, and then we'll stay in touch. And I really appreciate all your time, Matt.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me. I've really
Thank
loved it.
you. Good.